Familiar, yet full of surprises. Dolphins paying a visit. And bare islands. Polar ice meets a mini Sahara. All this is the Baltic Sea. In the far north, between Finland and Sweden, lies a labyrinth of islands. There, the sea is so low on salt that one encounters pike. And in the winter, everything turns to ice. This third episode takes us to the Gulf of Bothnia, roughly the same size as Slovakia, yet the least known region of the Baltic Sea. The Gulf of Bothnia is frozen over at the end of February. A white ocean, roughly 300 kilometers long and 150 kilometers wide. The ice shield, up to 1.20 meters thick, covers the entire north of the Baltic Sea. But one animal makes it through. The ringed seal keeps breathing holes free. After common seals and grey seals, it is the third type of seal in the Baltic Sea. Roughly 10,000 animals live in the northern region. With the strong claws on their front fins, they regularly scrape out breathing holes and extend them to prevent them from freezing over. Ringed seals need the ice to survive. Because this is their nursery. The baby was born in the middle of winter in a protected cave, which the mother dug out of a snowdrift in the pack ice. With access to the sea, of course, so that the mother can suckle her baby after the hunt. She has laid out an entire system of exits in the icy subterranean labyrinth. It is still not entirely clear just how she finds her way around there. Ringed seals can dive for around 3/4 of an hour in depths of up to 300 meters to hunt for fish. But they too have to breathe sometime. Unlike in the Arctic, where ice bears and polar foxes lurk, ringed seals are relatively safe on the Baltic ice. At the most, a sea eagle with a wingspan of 2.5 meters and strong claws could grab a baby seal. This is too big for him. It still flees to be on the safe side. The eagle has other prey in its sights anyway. He's after a herring gull, which he corners and causes to panic. Until it finally spits out the fish that it has just caught. Tenacity and in-flight acrobatics eventually lead to the desired result. When the sun goes down in the winter months, it conjures colourful light games in the Baltic Sea sky. Northern lights glow when solar winds meet with the Earth's atmosphere. Sometimes the cosmic phenomena appear for hours. But at times they disappear within mere minutes. The northern part of the Baltic is iced over from mid-October right up to May. In the Gulf of Bothnia, the salt content registers just 0.5%. This is why the water freezes more quickly than in other regions of the Baltic Sea. Many rivers flow into the sea here and sweeten it. Like the 400-kilometre-long Tornio, probably Europe's longest natural river. Just 80 kilometres south of the Arctic Circle and close to the estuary, it forms the border between Sweden and Finland. The rapids of Kukkolaforsen do not freeze over in the winter either. The river, therefore, remains free from ice in certain places, even at temperatures up to minus 30 degrees. That's why the otter can hunt here, and how he can even live in this icy region. His fur comprises around 50,000 hairs per square centimetre, more than 400 times more than in a human being. This protects the otter from cold and moisture in the icy water. Under the ice, he can dive for long distances and remain underwater for 5 to 8 minutes. He needs open water to draw breath. Here on the River Tornio, he doesn't have to keep the air holes open himself. As he loses a lot of warmth during the hunt, despite his dense fur, the exuberant animal needs up to 1 kilogram of food daily: fish, crabs, and other aquatic animals. Thanks to the rapids, yet another diver lives close by the Arctic Circle. The white-throated dipper. After a short dive, it returns to the ice with caddies fly larvae. While the otter rolls around in the snow to dry his fur, it grabs hold of the next larvae that it skillfully removes from its protective pouch and gobbles it down. The diving songbird and the restless water marder both find food in the cold season in the River Tornio. That soon meets in a delta full of islands, connected with one another in the winter by the solid ice. It is the northern end of the Baltic Sea and the south of Lapland. Landscape characterized by open coniferous forests, the home of reindeer. Close to the Baltic coast, the snow in winter is not as high as it is further inland. This makes life easier for the deer than it was in the mountains, scraping food free with his wide hooves, primarily lichens and moss. Like snowshoes, the hooves distribute the weight and prevent them from sinking too deeply. They are not wild reindeers, but the Sami's half-wild, roving domestic animals. They have markings on their ears or wear collars that show who the owner is. Each winter, the reindeer breeders bring their herds to the lower levels of the coast. They have to search for food themselves. They often take off across the ice of the Baltic, from island to island, and pass by settlements on their search for new feeding grounds. They even scratch around under birdhouses for seeds in people's front gardens. But the deer remain timid. Whenever a sledge comes close, they disappear in the vastness of the coniferous forests on Lapland's coast. 300 kilometers south of Lapland lies the Kvarken archipelago. Here too the Baltic is covered in ice. And in between, deposits from primeval glaciers, corrugated like enormous washboards, jutting out from the sea. The scary Sea of Kvarken is known to be especially rich in fish. This is why Finland's west coast is so popular, even in winter. Visa Heinonen and Jukka Vita have laid out some bait. A white-tailed sea eagle scrutinizes each step they make. They reopen the hole in the ice with a shovel and a drill. Nothing new for the eagle. Ice fishing in temperatures of below 20 degrees is a national sport in Finland. The two men bring in the long twine on which they'd attached a lure and a net. And pull out a pike out of the Baltic Sea. The eagle has to be patient. It's not his turn until the men leave after a successful bout of fishing. Like almost everywhere else, due to pollutants and hunting, sea eagles almost became extinct in Finland too in the 1970s. A few had managed to survive in the Kvarken archipelago. Nowadays, in the summer, around 35 couples breed here. Sometimes in the winter, as many as 300 eagles have been spotted. But they cannot hunt on the frozen-over Baltic Sea. They would normally migrate to ice-free waters further south. Leftovers from the ice anglers and especially created food points help the eagles and other birds through the winter. And still they quarrel. In most places, the Kvarken archipelago is completely frozen over. But sometimes, currents between the thousands of islands keep water areas open. In these areas, dozens of swans spend the winter as they find their main source of food here, water plants. Mute swans and the slightly smaller whooper swans. After being hunted in the 1950s, Finland's national bird almost became extinct. Today, in the spring, their trombone-like calls can once again be heard. Pairs stay together all of their lives. They renew their bond each spring with a synchronized, expressive dance on the water. In the meantime, almost 7,000 whooper swan pairs nestle in Finland. In the past decades, the mute swans first settled in numbers in the north of the Baltic Sea. At the end of March, the first frozen surfaces break apart further out to sea. Near to the coast, bays and lagoons are still iced over, as are many rivers. As of the middle of April, temperatures rise above freezing point, and the Kvarken archipelago transforms into a mosaic of islands, lakes and swamps. And a great migration begins. Most of the fish in the Kvarken archipelago are of the freshwater variety. They can only survive because there is so little salt in the north of the Baltic Sea. For their propagation, however, they require pure freshwater. This is why perch and roach leave the sea and head for the river estuaries, which are now full of meltwater, to spawn. Pikes follow them. The perch immediately position their spiny dorsal fins to appear larger in the face of these predators. Pikes, too, spend most of the year in Baltic seawater, but in the spring they leave for the rivers or lakes behind the coastal line to spawn. This narrow channel connects one of these lakes with the sea. When the sun goes down, the freshwater migration begins. The fish masses attract hunters. They come from the air. And lurk on the water. Great crested grebes, gulls, sea swallows. Even large, more than a metre-long pikes worm their way through the stony bottleneck to their spawning grounds. They attempt the passage with a strong tail stroke. Those that go astray in the process don't make it so close to their goal. Those that make it to the other side are already expected. Seagulls and gulls. Crows and cranes. The ringed eagle has known this place for more than 20 years. Many of the fish are exhausted. They die, or are at least easy prey. Even for cranes, who normally live from seeds and insects, but here can tear apart a big pike with their sharp beaks. The time of spring feelings ends fatally for many. Despite all of their losses, the propagation of sufficient fish is always ensured. This is extremely dangerous for male pike, as the significantly bigger females are also quite keen on smaller conspecifics as prey. Fortunately for the males, the females have a bite inhibition whilst mating. Several males caught one particular her, but only one of them comes into play per spawning procedure. The complete pairing takes hours. Pikes don't lay their eggs in one go. They do this in portions and in surges, altogether often more than 100,000. They adhere to leaves. This way they are not washed away, and in 10 days they develop into larvae in the oxygen-rich water. After just a few weeks, the mini pikes have grown several centimeters in length. The conditions are perfect. The shallow waters are full of nutrients, and they warm up quickly in the spring sunshine. A good day for a swim. And some prove just how contagious sheer joy can be. Okay, cranes dance the whole year long, but in the spring, they go into overdrive. Then, dancing together becomes a ritual, comprising jumping, wing flapping, and calling in a duet. A sign of cohesion for the coming breeding season in the Kvarken archipelago. Here, one can see a very special phenomenon that also occurs in the Baltic Sea: land uplift. Until up to around 10,000 years ago, a 3-kilometre strong ice shield covered the area, the weight of which used to push the Earth's crust into the depths below. Then the glaciers melted, and the ground is still re-expanding. Up to today, it rises at a rate of roughly 1 centimetre annually. In 100 years, we are talking of almost 1 metre, and then these boat houses will be on dry land. In many parts of the Kvarken archipelago, harbours have to be continuously moved, as due to the ground elevation, they have become unsuitable for shipping. This is why only special boats with a low draft navigate these waters. In 2,500 years, the islands will have risen so far out of the Baltic Sea that we will be able to walk from Finland to Sweden. In the forests along the northern Baltic, moose are not exactly a rarity. Nevertheless, in 2015, one of them hit the headlines in Finland. A moose cow died when it collided with a car. The consequence? The calf lost its mother. As an orphan, it would have no chance whatsoever. But it is brought to Markku Harju, who takes care of injured animals. He calls the moose calf Mervi, and Mervi soon gets to wander around Marcus's property as free as a bird. Before long, the two of them are inseparable. Bringing up moose babies with a bottle rarely works. It's difficult to obtain the correct milk. Mervi suffers from acute diarrhea, but the little fellow is tough. And the two of them are enjoying the joint summer break. Mervis seems to really like the reeds on the Baltic Sea beach. The story of the two friends moves the whole of Finland, and Mervi becomes a little star. For quite some time, it remains unclear whether the moose calf will make it. But in the spring of 2016, Markku takes this photo. One of Europe's rarest animals also lives in the Finnish forests. At first sight, it looks just like a common squirrel. In Europe, they can only be found in Estonia and Finland. The animals mostly spend the day in abandoned woodpecker holes. In the spring, however, they are also diurnal, in their own special way. By using skin flaps, flying squirrels are able to fly distances of up to 35 meters. It's mating time, and the flying squirrels are looking for suitable partners. The female has already found a nursery for her offspring. She rubs her scent from cheek glands onto branches. And sets marks with Yuru. Interested males give this cocktail a good sniff. And if he likes the smell, he really is after her. After 4 weeks, between 2 and 4 young flying squirrels will be born in the protection of the tree hollow. The Kvarken archipelago and its thousands of islands is an ideal breeding ground for birds. Especially for those who breed on the ground. As predators like foxes find it difficult in so much water. To steal a small goose, or to pilfer an egg from a gull's island nest. But when the redshank issues a warning, it means something. A hooded crow is approaching a mew gull's nest. While one parent broods, the other is on sentry duty. This is also necessary. Hooded crows are skillful nest robbers that never miss a moment of negligence. They're stubborn too. The other gull arrives in support. Hardly banished, the crow returns and attacks once again. Until the bird is chased away by an entire squad of gulls, while the first chick hatches in the nest. In the end, the crow actually is successful. And clears off into the bushes with her prey, where the gull cannot follow. Now, even the clamoring of the gulls is to no avail. In the meantime, the cranes also have offspring in their nest, safe from foxes on an island in the swamps. The chicks still hide in the warm plumage of the parents. They don't need to go far to find food. There are insects all around the nest. Like this dragonfly larvae. And another. The chick is but a few hours old and has an appetite for 4. Idyllic family life, close up and in a way very rarely seen. While the parents keep the nesting grounds in their sights, they don't see that the older chick is maltreating its younger sibling. Sometimes the small bird is crowded out of the nest as if a competitor, despite there being enough to eat. When small cranes grow in size, they search for food together with the parents. Then they all wade through the swamps. And should the water get too deep, the stalking birds become swim birds. Just like the swan family. From the flat world of the Kvarken archipelago and Finland's last outpost, it is no more than roughly 20 kilometers across the sea. Then distinctive rocks protrude on the Swedish side. Some are 150 meters tall. Many consist of red granite, which is typical of the region. The place is called Högakusten. The so-called high coast is full of deep canyons, tranquil mountain lakes and moors that lay high above the Baltic Sea. Brown bears live here. A male has picked up the scent of a female bear and is following her. In the summer, bears happily cool off in more lakes, but as they are mostly loners, greetings can be quite unfriendly. Right next door, someone is adamant the territory is his. A red-throated diver. The male bear has had enough. She was probably not yet ready. At last, peace falls over the moor. Time to go diving undisturbed. For fish or fresh lily pads. A small red-throated diver swims, full of expectation, to his parent. And while his chick sibling makes do with an insect, he is served with a big, fat, tasty fish. Another female bear appears. The male bear picks up her scent, an enticingly odorous trail. It seems as though she is willing to mate. When the two meet, things move pretty fast and furious. with no growling nor snarling. At the beginning of next year, she will give birth. We mostly talk here of 2 to 3 per litter. And soon, each of them go their own separate ways in the moors of the Kusten, high above the Baltic Sea. Nowhere else is the land uplift as prominent as it is here in the Skogsskogen National Park. This is where the Earth's crust was pressed down deepest by the weight of the glaciers. After the ice melted, these screes once formed the Baltic Sea shore. Since then, they have risen higher than anywhere else. The current shores are around 200 meters deeper and evoke the impression of how the cairns above must have looked 9,000 years ago. Agne Zetterberg is a nature scout in Skogsskogen National Park. He once roamed through the forests and hunted moose. In the meantime, he no longer follows them with a rifle. The photographer is still impressed by Sweden's national animal. One should always be alert of moose. They appear cute, slow and cozy. But watch out when they feel harassed. Keep well away from a raging moose. Upset or angry moose cows have been known to trample people to death. But this one allows another photo. Agne is satisfied. In the Skerry Garden, off of the high coast, lies another work of land uplifting. The island of Trusunda evolved out of 3 islands. The villages on the Skerries were once only inhabited in the summer. Fishermen used to sail from here to catch herrings. To this day, the Baltic off the high coast is full of fish. This attracts several seabirds to the Skerries. Today, on the abraded islands, western curlews rest. And eider ducks breed. Surprisingly, many Swedes don't know of the attractive drake at all. The main reason being that they only come in spring for the mating season on the Huga coasts. Up to 10 males then compete for the approval of one female, who has an inconspicuous plumage. Quite the opposite of the males in their magnificent frocks, who, once successful, immediately leave the coast behind them again. But their cooing love calls can still be made out. The females lay their eggs in hollows in the scree of the skerries that they have upholstered with the finest downy feathers. These are acknowledged to keep the birds especially warm. 4 weeks later, and the chicks have hatched. Their mothers soon lead them out onto the sea. Often, several duck parents with their flocks of chicks form a giant kindergarten. The little ones can swim almost immediately after hatching, and dive too. And it's not that easy to remain underwater when the air in the feathers keeps tugging the bird upwards. But with a bit of practice, it gets better and better. From the very beginning, the youngsters have to search for their food themselves, whilst diving. Little fish, crabs and later mussels on the seabed, the staple diet of the eider ducks. The only slightly salted water is fed in the north of the Baltic Sea, to this day from glaciers, many of which lay off Sweden's border with Norway. Here is the source of countless smaller streams that unite to become ever bigger rivers and surge toward the Baltic coast. The reindeer spend the warm season on the plateaus of Lapland. They move upwards to the cooler regions to escape the mosquito plague of a Scandinavian summer. The River Tornio also has its source in a small glacier in Lapland and flows from there to the estuary and the Baltic Sea. In the summer, the rapids of Kukkolaforsen are a popular rafting area. The untamed river has more attractions to offer. It is the most important salmon river that flows into the Baltic. Fishermen are waiting everywhere for the salmon. Everyone has his own method how to catch one. Some use rod and line, others use landing nets. At one point, stocks almost collapsed entirely. Today, thanks to strict regulations, once again hundreds of thousands of salmon aim for the spawning grounds at the River Tornio, where in the summer, just 80 kilometers from the Arctic Circle, the sun barely sets. And where in the estuary delta of the river, moose make their way along the shore of a unique sea. The youngest in the world, with salty water in the west and fresh water in the northeast. The Baltic Sea, a child of the last ice age.